After 21 hours of high-level negotiations, dawn broke over Islamabad with the weight of global expectation. But when U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance finally approached the podium, his posture told the story before he even spoke. He was visibly exhausted, shoulders slumped, announcing that the U.S. and Iran had failed to reach a deal. Yet standing right behind him, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff wore comfortable, entirely out-of-place smiles. Vance didn't linger. He spoke for barely 2 minutes, took exactly one question from a reporter, and immediately headed for his aircraft. This sudden collapse leaves a dangerous vacuum in international security. It raises a difficult question. How did the world's preeminent military power fail to secure an agreement when the stakes were this high? The immediate fallout is playing out on the water. The Strait of Hormuz remains bottlenecked, suffocating maritime trade and driving up energy costs for every household. And time is practically out. A fragile ceasefire is set to expire on April 21st, leaving a window of only a few days to prevent a broader escalation. Washington has repeatedly claimed to have neutralized Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure, yet conventional strikes and drone warfare clearly haven't forced a diplomatic surrender. To understand how this disconnect between battlefield dominance and diplomatic failure occurred, we have to look at 3 specific errors the American delegation made behind closed doors. Iran arrived in Islamabad prepared for an absolute marathon. They brought a highly structured 71-member team geared for the slow, methodical grind of international diplomacy. The United States, by contrast, sent Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, men with essentially no formal diplomatic experience. These are real estate developers with deep ties to Israeli lobbying. They treated these peace talks like a corporate buyout, aiming for quick leverage rather than the slow work of building trust. The lack of focus went straight to the top. While this critical summit was collapsing, President Donald Trump was sitting ringside at a UFC match back in the States. Sending inexperienced real estate operatives while the president watched cage fighting signaled a lack of seriousness to the Iranians. The talks were likely doomed on arrival. The second error was the offer itself. J.D. Vance presented a rigid take-it-or-leave-it deal. The U.S. offered to unfreeze $7 billion in Iranian assets in exchange for a ceasefire. But that cash came with an absolute demand. Iran had to immediately and completely surrender its nuclear material. Iran flatly refused. Citing a history of broken treaties, they demanded structural, ironclad guarantees before they would hand over a single ounce of material. This illustrates the trap they fell into. On one side, the U.S. demanding immediate action. On the other, Iran holding out for baseline guarantees. Neither side can move without the other moving first. When mutual trust is non-existent, a unilateral ultimatum creates a stalemate. Because no middle ground was offered, no ground was gained. Finally, the American delegation operated under a delusion of leverage. They negotiated as if they could simply dictate terms from a position of absolute superiority. This map shows the reality. By controlling the Strait of Hormuz, Iran commands a critical global supply artery. Their refusal to open it is suffocating the economy, turning away cargo ships that refuse to pay their tolls. The United States is desperate to return to a pre-war economic state. Iran, however, has calculated that they can wait this crisis out. A fleet of stealth bombers means very little when your adversary is perfectly willing and able to hold the global economy hostage. Because these talks failed, the global supply chain remains hijacked. For the foreseeable future, energy prices and the cost of everyday goods will stay high across the world. The military situation is also deteriorating. Reports indicate that Israel is already directing its forces to prepare for resumed hostilities, including potential carpet bombing. The diplomatic failure in Islamabad has left the entire Middle East on the precipice of an expanded war. Despite the failure of the principal parties, one winner emerged from the summit: Pakistan. Operating as a neutral mediator, they successfully facilitated the logistics of an impossibly tense meeting. That diplomatic effort yielded immediate results. Shortly after the summit, Pakistan secured a $5 billion sovereign investment package, largely driven by Saudi Arabia. While Washington and Tehran remain deadlocked, regional powers are quietly recognizing and rewarding those who build diplomatic bridges. Until the United States moves past a strategy of maximum pressure and offers mutual guarantees, global peace will remain stalled. But in the meantime, New mediators are stepping up to fill the vacuum.